The street had no name. No one remembered it ever having one. It ran straight through the city, north to south, cutting past houses that all looked similar enough to mistake one for another if you weren't careful. The bricks were laid so evenly that your feet learned the pattern without you noticing. Step after step, the same resistance, the same sound. People said the street was older than any house standing beside it. He believed them. As a child, he learned to walk here. As an adult, he learned to work here. And every morning, when the light crept in from the east, the street looked exactly the same as it had the day before. Nothing here announced importance. There were no carvings in the walls, no symbols pressed into the brick, no markers to tell you who had built it or why. And yet, the street guided everyone. Carts followed it without hesitation. Traders used it as if it were obvious. Even strangers stepped onto it and adjusted their pace without realizing they had done so. The street did not demand attention. It absorbed it. At dawn, water was drawn from nearby wells. The sound echoed faintly beneath the stones. The drains opened briefly, then closed again. Everything returned to stillness. When something broke, it was fixed quickly, not because anyone ordered it, because the street did not tolerate delays. He once saw a brick loosen after heavy rain. By evening, it was gone, replaced by another identical in size and color. No one admitted to doing it. No one needed to. At midday, the street filled with movement. Bead makers carried trays of polished carnelian. Grain was weighed carefully, the stone weights placed and removed with practiced hands. Arguments rarely lasted long. Measurement ended them. Children played in the same spaces their parents once had. Clay toys rolled across the stone. Small carts scraped softly along the surface. Laughter rose, then faded. The street remembered none of it. Years passed. The river shifted slightly. Some houses closer to its edge were abandoned. Others were repaired. The street remained. When fewer people passed through, the sound changed. The echo lingered longer. The air felt wider. He noticed something strange one evening. Standing in the middle of the street, he realized there was no clear beginning or end to it. No matter which direction he faced, the bricks continued in the same measured pattern, disappearing into distance. It was as if the city had been built around it, not the other way around. When families began to leave, they did not mark their departure. Doors were closed, goods taken, the street watched. Weeks later, the same footsteps echoed again. Different people, same rhythm. The street accepted them. On the day he left, he walked the length of it once more. He tried to remember a time when it had changed. He couldn't. As he stepped away, the street did not follow. It didn't need to. It had outlived everyone who had ever walked it before, and it would wait for whoever came next. The seals were never explained. They didn't need to be. Small squares of stone rested in cloth bundles passed from hand to hand with care. Each one carried an image carved deep enough to survive pressure, but shallow enough to avoid cracks. Animals stared back from the surface, some familiar, some not. Above them were symbols, short marks arranged with intention. Everyone recognized them. No one spoke them aloud. When clay was wet, the seal was pressed down. The mark appeared instantly, sharp and final. Whatever had been sealed was now complete, finished, agreed upon. A child once asked what the symbols meant. The answer came without thought. They mean this belongs. That was enough. The seals moved quietly through the city. They appeared in storage rooms, on jars of grain, at workshop doors. They never appeared in places of rest. You didn't seal a home, you sealed work. Some seals were older than others, their edges softened by use, their images still precise. One seal bore an animal no one could name. It appeared nowhere else in the city. The person who carried it had no authority beyond the seal itself. When it was pressed into clay, trade continued. When it was absent, things stalled. No one complained. Foreign traders tried to replicate them. Their copies were close but never right. The spacing of the marks was wrong, the pressure uneven. Their goods were returned quietly. No explanation was given. At night, seals were wrapped carefully and stored away. Not displayed, not worshipped, they were tools. One morning, a seal was found cracked. The clay it had been pressed into was left untouched. No one removed it. No one finished the process. Work slowed that day. A new seal was not created immediately. People waited. When one finally appeared, the image was different. The marks rearranged slightly. Trade resumed. Years passed. Some seals disappeared as families left. Others were forgotten in empty rooms. A few were found near drains, washed clean of clay by flowing water. When the city thinned, seals lost their purpose. Without people who understood the system, they were only stone. Centuries later, strangers would find them and try to read them. They would argue, they would list symbols, count repetitions, invent meanings. They would ask what language they belonged to. The seals would not answer. They never had. They were never meant to be read by outsiders, only recognized. And when recognition vanished, so did their voice. The drains were always there, even when you forgot about them, covered by stone, running beneath streets and houses, sloped carefully so water never hesitated unless something was wrong. Someone checked them, not officially, not ceremonially. It was simply understood. When water slowed, smells followed. When smells followed, disease came. Everyone knew this. The person who knew the drains best never spoke much. They listened instead, to water, to vibration, to the difference between flow and resistance. They lifted covers early in the morning when the city was quiet. They checked joints between bricks, cleared debris before it accumulated. Children were warned not to drop things where they didn't belong. Adults corrected them gently. No one wanted to see what happened when drains failed. As the years passed, fewer people walked the streets above. Workshops closed. Wells were used less often. Still, the drains were checked. It felt strange at first, like maintaining something no one used. But water still moved. Rain still fell. And when it did, the channels carried it away. The person doing the checks grew older. Their steps slowed. Their hands shook slightly when lifting stones. No one replaced them. Not because no one could. Because no one thought to ask. On the day the last family left the city, the drains were still clear. The person walked the full route one final time, lifted covers, listened, everything flowed. They replaced the stones carefully, pressed them into place. They did not seal the drains. They did not block them. They left them ready, because systems that are shut down decay faster than systems left alone. Years passed. Rainwater continued to move beneath empty streets. The drains carried it away as designed. Nothing flooded, nothing broke. The city above collapsed slowly. Roofs fell, walls cracked, sand filled rooms. Below, the channels remained. clean, silent, waiting. Long after the city was forgotten, water still knew where to go, and that, somehow, felt deliberate.